Nashville, 2018. The summer heat carried the scent of bourbon and ambition. Every night the city hummed with guitars, heartbreak, and hungry dreams, and I was one of them. My name is Kira Solin, 28 years old, songwriter, dreamer, believer. Music wasn't just what I did. It was who I was. And for a long time, I believed the world would recognize my voice. Until someone else did, first. I met Eli Hartman, my producer, in a studio off Music Row. He had that magnetic charm, the kind that convinced you your dreams were safe with him. His studio smelled like coffee and old wood, and his walls were lined with platinum records from artists I grew up admiring. "Your voice is raw," he said during our first session, leaning back in his chair. "Unpolished, but pure. That's rare, Kira." Those words hooked me. For months we worked together, building something special. Late nights, empty takeout boxes, laughter that melted into melodies. We created a song called Glass Skin, my most personal piece. It wasn't just a song, it was my soul in sound. Every lyric was a confession I was terrified to speak out loud. The night I finished recording the demo, Eli hugged me. "You've got something real here," he whispered. I remember smiling through tears. For once, I thought my pain had found purpose. Weeks passed. I waited for updates, a call, a text, anything, but Eli went quiet. Until one morning, my roommate Lena burst into my room, clutching her phone. "Kira," she said, voice trembling, "you need to hear this." She pressed play. And there it was, my song, my lyrics, my melody, but the voice wasn't mine. A famous pop artist, Nova Ray, was singing my words, the ones I'd bled for. Even the title was the same. Glass Skin, same tempo, same piano riff, same broken-hearted bridge. I froze. The air went out of my lungs. Every beat of the song stabbed me like a knife I'd sharpened myself. I called Eli. He didn't answer. I emailed. Nothing. Then I saw it. On Instagram. Eli posting behind-the-scenes photos with Nova Ray. Grateful to produce another hit for this queen. The comment section glowed with heart emojis and fire icons. Everyone loved my pain, packaged in someone else's fame. I slammed my laptop shut, but the sound echoed in my chest. How could he? How could someone who knew how much that song meant to me take it? I stopped eating, stopped writing. The music that used to save me now haunted me. Every time Glass Skin played on the radio, I'd turn it off, but not before hearing the crowd in my mind screaming lyrics they thought belonged to someone else. My song was gone, and so was the version of me who believed that talent was enough. But grief has a strange way of shifting. It starts as a wound, then hardens into something sharper. I didn't know it yet, but something inside me was beginning to change. That night, I opened my laptop again, stared at the old demo file, the one with my voice, my timestamps, my name in the metadata, and I whispered to myself, "They stole my song, but they haven't heard my story yet." I didn't sleep that night. The glow of my laptop burned into my eyes like a confession I couldn't escape. The demo file, my voice, played on loop, haunting and fragile. Every imperfection reminded me it was real. Every breath was proof that the song was mine. I wanted to scream, but all that came out was silence. A silence that felt louder than any melody I'd ever written. The next morning, I put on a hoodie, no makeup, no filter, just fury wrapped in exhaustion, and drove straight to Eli's studio. Music Row was buzzing, like it always was. Dreamers walking the sidewalks, clutching guitars like lifelines, unaware that dreams could be stolen just as easily as songs. When I walked in, the receptionist gave me that polite, fake smile. "Do you have an appointment?" "No," I said, "but he'll want to see me." She opened her mouth to respond, but before she could, I was already pushing the studio door open. Eli looked up from the mixing console. He was wearing sunglasses indoors, sipping cold brew like a man without guilt. "Kira," he said, voice smooth, like he didn't just gut me alive. "You should have called." "Called?" I laughed, sharp and bitter. "You mean like I called you 10 times after you stole my song?" His jaw tightened, just a flicker, but I saw it. "Kira," he started, calm, measured, fake. "Listen, you're talented. But that song needed a bigger platform. Nova Ray could take it somewhere you never could." I stared at him, words catching fire in my throat. "You took my story, Eli. You took my heartbreak, and you sold it." He sighed. "It's business, Kira. That's how this town works." "No," I said, stepping closer. "That's how you work." His lips curved into a smirk that made me want to throw something. Be smart about this. The exposure will help you. You can write more songs. That's what you do, right? I wanted to hit him. Instead, I walked out. But before I closed the door, I turned back. You'll regret this. He laughed. Everyone says that. Back in my car, I cried until my hands shook on the steering wheel. People outside probably thought I was drunk or broken. They were half right. Lena called. Kira, come home, please. You don't sound okay. I didn't answer. Instead, I drove aimlessly until I found myself in front of an old dive bar that used to host open mics. The kind of place where no one cared who you were, just what your voice could do. Inside, it smelled like stale beer and smoke. I ordered whiskey neat, even though I hated whiskey. The bartender, a woman with silver hair and a raspy voice, studied me. You look like you've been through hell, she said. I smiled weakly. I wrote a song once. Someone else sang it. She chuckled dryly. Welcome to Nashville, honey. Her words stuck with me. Maybe this city didn't owe me anything, but I wasn't going to let it take everything. When I got home that night, I played Glass Skin again. But this time, not Nova's version. Mine. The raw demo, the uneven piano, the little hum I did before the second verse, the one Eli told me to cut. It wasn't perfect, but it was honest. And maybe honesty was my weapon. That's when the idea hit me. A single dangerous thought that refused to fade. What if I told my story, my version, and let the world decide who they believed? I opened a new YouTube channel, no profile picture, no name, just the username, Glass Skin Original. I uploaded the demo, heart pounding like thunder in my ears. Caption: the song that was stolen. This is the real version. Then I hit publish. For a moment, I thought the universe might split open, but the screen stayed still, quiet, waiting. An hour passed, then two, nothing. But around midnight, the first comment appeared. This sounds identical to Nova Ray's track. What the hell? Then another. Wait, the timestamps in the metadata are older. Is this the original? And then more. Hundreds of them. The algorithm began to do what algorithms do best. Spread chaos. By sunrise, the video had 50,000 views. By noon, 200,000. People started tagging Nova Ray's account, demanding answers. Fan pages posted side-by-side comparisons. Music bloggers picked up the story. Glass Skin Original started trending. I sat in bed shaking, watching the view count explode. Lena came in, eyes wide. Kira, this is going viral. I stared at the screen, tears welling up. I didn't mean for it to blow up this fast. Yes, you did, Lena said softly, and you deserve every second of it. For the first time since the betrayal, I smiled. But deep down, I knew this was only the beginning. Because while the internet burned, Eli was about to wake up to a storm he couldn't control, and I was done playing quiet. By the second morning, my phone was melting. Notifications popped like fireworks. Emails, messages, calls from numbers I didn't recognize. Glass Skin Original had crossed 2 million views. Every major entertainment blog had picked up the story. Unknown singer claims Nova Ray's hit is stolen. Who is the real voice behind Glass Skin? I should have felt vindicated, but instead I felt sick. Fame, even accidental, was a kind of fever. Lena sat on the couch, scrolling through Twitter. People are obsessed with you, she said, half smiling. Look, justice for Kira Solin is trending. I laughed in disbelief. Justice? They don't even know who I am. You could change that, she said softly. I looked at her. You mean, go public? Lena nodded. You are the story now. You can't stay anonymous forever. The thought made my stomach twist. Going public meant war, and Eli knew how to fight dirty. It didn't take long for the counterattack to begin. That afternoon, a statement appeared on Nova Ray's official Instagram. We've been made aware of false claims circulating online regarding Glass Skin. The song was legally written and produced under a signed agreement. Any defamatory allegations will be handled by our legal team. The caption ended with a heart emoji. A heart. I almost laughed. It was the most polished lie I'd ever seen. But what came next was worse. Eli finally called. Kira, his voice was ice. Take the video down. I'm not doing that. You don't understand, he snapped. You signed an NDA. You're breaching contract. You breached my trust, I said. He exhaled sharply. This isn't going to end well for you. We're already preparing a lawsuit. I stared at the phone screen, my reflection distorted in the black glass. Then I guess I'll see you in court. And I hung up. I didn't tell Lena. I didn't want her to worry, but my hands were shaking too hard to hide it. That night, my video hit 3 million views, then 5, then 8. The comments were split now. Half defending me, half calling me a liar, an attention seeker, a failed artist trying to ride someone else's fame. Every cruel word hit harder than the last. It's strange how fast strangers can build you up and tear you down. 3 days later, I got my first legal notice. A formal letter from Nova Ray's management, threatening to sue for defamation. I read it 3 times. Numb. Lena paced the apartment. This is insane. They can't just... They can, I cut in. They have money, lawyers, influence. So what do you have? I looked up, my voice steady. Proof. But proof doesn't speak unless you make it heard. So I started gathering everything. The demo timestamps, the project files, emails, messages, even old studio recordings. Late one night, I found something I hadn't noticed before. An old voice memo Eli sent me during production. He was humming the chorus, but in the background, my original track was playing faintly. I had sent it to him days before Nova Ray ever recorded. I replayed the file, my heart pounding. It was subtle, but undeniable. This was evidence. I just didn't know yet how dangerous it would be to use it. The next morning, the media turned vicious. Talk shows debated whether I was lying. Reaction YouTubers analyzed my demo frame by frame. Even gossip accounts twisted the narrative. Aspiring singer seeks clout after Nova Ray's hit success. My name was suddenly everywhere, and nowhere at the same time. The internet had taken my story and turned it into entertainment. And in the middle of it all, I started doubting myself. Was I really strong enough for this fight? Did I even want it anymore? But then, I heard my own voice again. That fragile demo echoing through my laptop speakers. And I remembered why I started. I wasn't doing this for fame. I was doing it for truth. That night, I sat by the window, the city lights flickering like restless stars. Lena came in quietly, holding 2 mugs of coffee. You okay? She asked. I nodded, though I wasn't. They're trying to erase me, Lena. Then don't let them. Her voice was calm, steady, the kind of strength I'd forgotten I had. I looked at her and smiled faintly. You know, if I go down, I'm taking them with me. I didn't know it yet, but my next move would cross a line I couldn't uncross. Because tomorrow I'd make my first live appearance on a national talk show that had just emailed me with 1 line. We'd like to hear your side of the story, and for the first time, the world would see my face. The morning of the interview felt unreal. I hadn't slept. My eyes were swollen, my voice raw from rehearsing the truth in front of the mirror. Lena sat beside me in the car as we drove through the gray Nashville dawn. Breathe, she said. I nodded, but my chest felt tight, like the city itself was holding its breath with me. Outside, the news van lights flickered like spotlights waiting to swallow me whole. For years, I dreamed of being seen. Now, I was terrified of it. Inside the studio, producers buzzed around like hornets. A makeup artist dabbed concealer under my eyes, whispering, Don't look nervous, honey. The camera smells fear. I smiled weakly. Fear wasn't my problem anymore. Fury was. The host, Clara Jensen, was a household name. Warm smile, cold eyes. She shook my hand, firm and calculated. Kira, thank you for joining us. You understand the sensitivity of this topic. I do, I said. I just want the truth out there. Her lips curved. Good, because so do we. As the red light blinked on, everything slowed. The studio fell silent except for the faint hum of equipment and my own heartbeat. Clara turned to the camera. Good morning, America. Today we're speaking to the woman behind the viral sensation, Glass Skin, a songwriter who claims her work was stolen by producer Eli Hartman and pop star Nova Ray. Her tone was sweet, but I could feel the tension beneath it. The same way a smile hides a blade. She turned to me. Kira, tell us, when did you realize your song had been taken? I swallowed. When I heard it on the radio, every lyric, every note, it was mine. Clara nodded. And you have proof? Yes, emails, project files, metadata, even an original voice memo Eli sent me. She leaned in. Have you shown this evidence to legal authorities? Not yet, I said, but I will. The crowd in the studio murmured, some sympathetic, others skeptical. Halfway through, Clara touched her earpiece and frowned slightly. Then she smiled too quickly, the kind of smile that meant trouble. Kira, we actually have something for you, she said. My pulse quickened. The big screen behind us flickered. And suddenly, Eli's face appeared via video call. "Good morning, Kira," he said smoothly. "Didn't expect to see me so soon, did you?" My throat went dry. I felt the audience's collective gasp. "Eli," Clara said brightly, "thank you for joining us. We thought it was only fair to hear your side." Of course they did. Drama meant ratings. "Kira," Eli began, pretending to sound wounded, "I considered you a friend, but this smear campaign, it's heartbreaking." I stared at the camera, fury rising like bile. "Friendship doesn't involve theft." "You're confused," he said. "You signed a collaboration clause. Everything you wrote in that session became co-owned material." "That's not true," I snapped. "You told me it was my song." He smiled like a viper. "You wanted to believe that." Clara cut in, trying to control the chaos. "Eli, do you have documentation to support your claim?" "Absolutely," he said. "And our lawyers are already reviewing Ms. Solin's online statements." The audience gasped again. I could feel the narrative shifting. For a moment, I froze. Every instinct screamed at me to defend myself. But my mind was blank, until I remembered the file. "The voice memo," I whispered. Clara blinked. "I'm sorry." I turned to the producer behind the camera. "Can you play something from my phone? It's important." They hesitated, but I was already handing it over. Track number 4, Eli Chorus hum.mp3. The studio fell silent. Then the audio filled the air. Eli's voice humming the chorus, and faintly beneath it, my voice singing the original demo. The soundproof room trembled with the truth. Eli's expression cracked. "Where did you—" "You sent it to me," I said, calm now. "Before Nova Ray ever recorded. You just didn't think I'd keep receipts." The audience gasped. Clara's face stiffened. The control room's glass flickered with frantic movement as producers scrambled. This wasn't supposed to happen. Eli stammered, "That doesn't prove anything." But the damage was done. The clip would be online before the segment even ended. And for the first time, he looked afraid. After the show, the chaos spilled onto social media within minutes. Eli Hartman trended above Bachert Glass Skin Original. Clips of his panicked expression went viral. Fans called for boycotts. Labels released statements. Journalists flooded my inbox. I sat in the green room, numb. Lana rushed in, breathless. "You destroyed him," she whispered. "Do you realize what you just did?" I looked at the mirror. My reflection stared back. A stranger wearing my face, trembling with adrenaline. "I didn't destroy him," I said quietly. "He destroyed himself." Outside, cameras flashed like lightning. My story had finally been heard, but I could already sense something darker on the horizon. Because people don't go down quietly, and Eli Hartman wasn't the kind of man to lose gracefully. Somewhere out there, he was already plotting his next move. And soon, I'd find out just how far he was willing to go. The morning after the broadcast, I woke up to chaos. News anchors replayed the clip from the show like it was national drama. Headlines screamed, "Producer caught lying on live TV." "Who really owns glass skin?" "Pop star silent amid scandal." My face was everywhere. I wasn't anonymous anymore. And for a few brief hours, the world seemed to believe me. Until they didn't. By afternoon, the narrative had shifted. Eli's team released exclusive documents. Fake contracts with my forged signature. Dozens of articles appeared overnight claiming I'd doctored evidence, that I was unstable, emotionally erratic. Some even dug through my old tweets, twisting them into proof of obsession. The headlines turned colder. Is Kira Solin a fraud? The woman behind the hoax. It was a masterclass in character assassination. Eli knew how to turn the public eye into a weapon. Lena slammed her laptop shut. "This is disgusting," she said, pacing. "You need a lawyer, now." "I can't afford one," I muttered. "I'll sell my car if I have to." Her voice cracked, but I shook my head. "No, Lena, I started this fight. I'll finish it." She stared at me, tears glistening. "This isn't a song anymore, Kira. It's a war." The next few days blurred together. Online death threats. Fake interviews. Someone even leaked my address. Paparazzi camped outside my building. Every time I walked out, flashes blinded me. Neighbors whispered, and yet somehow, Nova Ray remained silent. Her image perfectly polished, untouched by the storm. It made sense. Eli was protecting his golden artist, no matter how much blood it took. On the 5th day, I received an email from an anonymous sender. Subject: He's planning something bigger. The message was short. Check your social feed tomorrow at 9 a.m. He's setting you up. No name, no signature, just that. I didn't sleep. At 9 a.m. sharp, I opened my phone. A new video had gone viral. A compilation of edited clips, making it look like I admitted to collaborating with Eli willingly. He'd spliced my old demo reels into fake footage. My words twisted out of context. Within hours, hashtags flipped again. Kira the Liar trended above Patrick Glass Skin Original. It was like watching my name burn in real time. I called Eli. He answered instantly, voice calm. Too calm. Still think you're the victim, sweetheart. You doctored that video, I shouted. He laughed softly. Welcome to the industry, Kira. Truth doesn't matter, narrative does. And guess who owns it? My hands trembled. You won't get away with this. Oh, I already have. The line clicked dead. Something in me cracked then, not with fear, but fury. I opened my laptop, scrolling through every file, every note, every message I had left from our time working together. If Eli wanted a war, I'd give him one. But not with noise, with evidence. Real, undeniable proof. Buried deep in an old external hard drive, I found the session logs from our recording nights, complete with timestamps, IP addresses, and version history showing my authorship. I stared at the data, heart pounding. It was enough to expose him completely, but releasing it would also violate the NDA he mentioned. If I posted it, I could be sued into ruin. It was a choice between survival and truth. Lena found me sitting there at 3 a.m., eyes glassy, hard drive glowing faintly in the dark. Kira, what are you doing? Ending this, I whispered. She knelt beside me. Think about this. If you leak that data, they'll come after you harder than ever. I don't care. Yes, you do, she said, grabbing my hands. You care about your music, your future. Don't let him turn you into him. Her words hit me like cold water. Because she was right. Somewhere along the way, I'd stopped fighting for my song and started fighting just to hurt him back. I closed the laptop. For the first time in weeks, I didn't cry or scream or scroll. I just sat in silence. Outside, a siren wailed faintly, distant, haunting. Somewhere in that sound, I found my resolve. If Eli could manipulate the narrative, maybe I could reclaim it, not with leaked files or illegal evidence, but with something pure, my voice. The next day, I went to the same dive bar where I'd first broken down weeks ago. The bartender recognized me immediately. Back again, huh? She said. I smiled weakly. This time, I'm not running. I asked if I could borrow the mic for a few minutes. The regulars murmured but nodded. Then I played the demo, and sang it live, raw, unfiltered, no backup track. Every lyric trembled out of me like confession and resurrection at once. When I finished, the room was silent, not with indifference, but reverence. Then applause, small at first, then thunderous. Someone filmed it, someone else uploaded it, and by midnight, it had already started spreading. Her voice not has trended by sunrise. For the first time, I didn't feel like a victim or a warrior, just Kira Solin, a woman reclaiming what was hers. But even as I smiled through tears, a single thought echoed in my mind. Eli wouldn't stop here. He'd strike again. And next time, he wouldn't use lawyers or lies. He'd come for me personally. The first time I saw him again, it was in the reflection of a window. I was walking home from the grocery store, hoodie up, headphones in, humming the chorus of Glass Skin under my breath, when something in the glass storefront caught my eye. A figure, tall, still, watching. When I turned around, he was gone. At first, I thought I imagined it. After everything, the lawsuits, the threats, the sleepless nights, paranoia had become my closest friend. But over the next week, strange things started happening. The door to my apartment would be unlocked. Even when I knew I'd locked it, my cat Luna would hiss at the empty hallway. A USB drive appeared in my mailbox. No return address, just a file named Remember This MP3. When I played it, I froze. It was my voice, humming, recorded secretly. In the background, Eli's laugh. I called Lena immediately. Lena, he's here. Kira, calm down. Tell me what happened. I don't know. I think he's been following me. Do you want me to come over? I hesitated. No, I don't want you near this. He's unpredictable. There was silence on the line. Then she said quietly, You need to tell the police. I laughed bitterly. The police? Eli's got friends everywhere. Lawyers, PR people, money. They'll just say I'm unstable. Again. Kira. I'm fine, I lied. I just need to think. That night, I barely slept. Every sound felt amplified. The creak of the floorboards, the hum of the fridge, even the whisper of the wind outside. At 2:47 a.m., I heard something, a faint melody coming from the stairwell. It was Glass Skin, played softly on piano. I crept to the door, my heart pounding so hard it hurt. When I peered through the peephole, there was nothing. Just the faint echo of the last note fading into silence. But taped to the door was a note. 3 words, written in his handwriting. "Let's make music." I locked every bolt. Then I sat on the floor, trembling, trying to decide what to do. For the first time, I wasn't angry. I was terrified. I knew Eli was unraveling. His career had collapsed. Sponsors dropped him. Nova Ray was under investigation for copyright theft. But I hadn't expected him to snap. And now he wanted me to know he was close. The next morning, I packed a bag and drove to Lena's house across town. When she opened the door, her face went pale. "Kira, you look like hell." "I feel worse." I told her everything. The USB, the note, the music in the stairwell. Her hands shook as she listened. "This isn't just obsession anymore," she said. "It's escalation. He's trying to scare you into silence." "It's working," I whispered. "No." She grabbed my shoulders. "You've come too far to let him win now." That afternoon, Lena insisted on setting up cameras around my apartment. Hidden ones, motion triggered. "If he comes back, we'll have proof," she said. For the first time in days, I felt a sliver of control. But control, like fame, is an illusion. 2 nights later, the cameras recorded movement. At 3:12 a.m., a shadow appeared near my door. Male, broad-shouldered, standing still for over a minute. Then he slipped something under the door. A flash drive. When I watched the footage, my stomach turned. The next morning, I opened the drive on my laptop, hands shaking. Inside was a single video file, unfinished song Mauve. The clip showed a dark room, a piano, and Eli, disheveled, eyes bloodshot, smiling faintly. "Kira," he said to the camera, voice trembling. "You wanted the truth? Here it is." He started playing Glass Skin, but the melody warped halfway through, twisting, haunting, discordant. Then he whispered, "You stole my fame, so I'll take yours." The video cut to black. I slammed the laptop shut, heart racing. This wasn't just intimidation anymore. It was a threat. That evening, I went to the police with Lena. They listened politely, took notes, and promised to look into it. But I saw it in their eyes. They didn't take me seriously. Another hysterical artist, another fame-driven feud. As we left the station, I muttered, "They don't believe me." Lena squeezed my hand. "Then we make them." That night, I went live on YouTube for the first time. No edits, no filters. Just me, pale, tired, shaking. Speaking directly to whoever still believed in me. "I don't know how much longer I can do this," I said softly. "But if anything happens to me, you'll know who did it." Tears welled in my eyes. This isn't about fame anymore. It's about fear and truth. And I won't be silenced. The live stream ended, but the message had already spread. By morning, it had millions of views. And one comment, pinned to the top, froze my blood. "See you soon, Songbird." No username, no profile picture. But I knew exactly who wrote it. The night it happened, Nashville was drowning in rain. Thunder rolled across the sky like a warning, but I didn't listen. I was in the studio again, my safe place, or what used to be. I'd come to record new vocals, something to take my mind off the nightmare that had become my life. Lena insisted on coming, but I told her I needed to be alone. Now I wish I hadn't. The clock read 11:52 p.m. Outside, the rain slapped against the windows, each drop sounding like a ticking countdown. I hit record and started singing, but halfway through the chorus, the lights flickered, then went out. At first, I thought it was just the storm. Then I heard it. Footsteps. Slow, deliberate, inside the building. I froze. My microphone was still live, picking up my shaky breaths. "Hello?" My voice trembled. "Is someone there?" No answer, only the sound of the door creaking open at the far end of the hallway. Lightning flashed, illuminating a shadow, broad shoulders, stillness. And in that instant, I knew. It was him. "Eli," I whispered, my throat closing. "What do you want?" His voice came from the dark, low and distorted. What was always mine. He stepped forward, and for the first time, I saw what he'd become. A ghost of himself. Hair disheveled, eyes red, rain soaking through his shirt. "You ruined me," he hissed. "You took everything. You did that yourself. He laughed, a sound that didn't belong to a human anymore. You think you're some hero now? Some victim who found her voice? He took another step closer. I made you. Without me, you'd still be singing in bars. I backed up, my hand reaching for the phone on the console. Stay away from me. He tilted his head, smirking. Or what? You'll write another song about it. He lunged. I screamed, shoving the mic stand between us. It clattered to the floor, cables snapping, sparks flickering from the equipment. The storm outside roared louder, lightning cutting through the darkness. We struggled. His hand gripped my wrist, slamming me against the console. Stop fighting me, he shouted. This is how it ends. I grabbed the nearest thing, a shattered guitar string, still wound around a tuning peg, and slashed at his arm. He recoiled, blood mixing with rain. His face twisted, rage and disbelief tangled together. You'll regret that. Suddenly, a sound echoed from the hallway. Police, drop it. 2 officers burst in, Lena right behind them, drenched and shaking. Eli froze. For a second, I saw fear flicker across his eyes. Then, he bolted. One of the officers tackled him near the door. The other pulled me aside, wrapping a blanket around my shoulders as if that could erase the trembling in my bones. Lena ran to me, tears streaming down her face. I knew something was wrong. You weren't answering. I called them. I tried to speak, but the words caught in my throat. All I could do was hold her hand. They took Eli away in handcuffs. He didn't fight, didn't speak. But as he passed me, he turned his head and smiled. A slow, eerie smile. You can't silence me forever, he whispered. Even as they dragged him out, his words clung to me like static in the dark. Hours later, I sat in the police station, a blanket around my shoulders, giving my statement. They told me they'd found more evidence in his car. Surveillance photos of me, notes, even a recording device planted near my apartment. He'd been planning this for weeks, every step, every scare. Choreographed like one of his songs. A song of control, of power, of obsession. When dawn finally broke, I stepped outside. The rain had stopped. The air smelled like wet asphalt and new beginnings. Lena stood beside me, silent. Neither of us spoke. For the first time in months, the world was quiet. But the silence wasn't peace. It was aftermath. That night, I went back to the studio, alone again, but this time, not afraid. The police had cleared the scene. The cables were fixed. The room smelled faintly of metal and rain. I sat at the piano, my hands hovered over the keys, and then I began to play. The same song that started everything, but this time it sounded different. Wounded, but alive. Like me. I hit record. Not for revenge, not for validation. For closure. When I finished, I whispered into the mic, "This is how it ends." But I was wrong. It wasn't an ending, it was the start of something new. The trial began 6 weeks later. By then, the headlines had already decided who I was. The songbird who fought back. From victim to voice. But I didn't feel like either. I felt hollow. Eli's face appeared on every screen, every newspaper, every feed. When I saw him again in court, he looked smaller somehow. Not in size, but in spirit. The arrogance that once filled the room around him had evaporated. And yet, when our eyes met, he smiled. The same cold, patient smile. As if to remind me, even if I lose, I'll haunt you. The courtroom was filled with tension so thick it felt like fog. Lena sat beside me every day, a steady hand in a world spinning too fast. The prosecution laid out the evidence, the voice memos, the metadata, the stalking footage, the threats. Each piece painted a clearer picture of a man who couldn't accept losing control. His lawyers tried everything, claiming mental instability, claiming I led him on, claiming it was all mutual artistic obsession. But lies crumble when truth has receipts. When the final verdict was read, guilty, the world seemed to exhale. Eli Hartman was sentenced to 7 years for harassment, illegal surveillance, and intellectual property theft. 7 years, it didn't feel like enough, but it was something. After the trial, journalists flooded the courthouse steps. Microphones, cameras, questions that stabbed like needles. What's next for you, Kira? Do you forgive him? Will you ever sing Glass Skin again? I didn't answer any of them. Some stories need silence more than sound. For months, I disappeared. No social media, no interviews, just quiet. I rented a small cabin outside the city, surrounded by woods and rain and the soft rhythm of peace. For the first time, I could breathe. Sometimes I'd sit at the window, coffee in hand, and think about how something as fragile as a song had almost destroyed me. But then I'd remember, it also saved me. One evening, Lena came to visit, carrying a small box. "Mail for you," she said, with a grin. Inside was a letter from Nova Ray. I hesitated before opening it. Her handwriting was neat, almost too careful. "Kira, I'm sorry. I didn't know what Eli had done until it was too late. The label forced me to keep quiet. I'm leaving the contract. If you ever want to write together, for real, I'd be honored." I sat there for a long time, staring at the page. Forgiveness didn't come easy, but it came. And for the first time, I didn't feel anger when I heard her name, just closure. A year later, I returned to Nashville. Not for revenge, not for interviews, but for something simpler. A live performance. The same network that once aired my humiliation now wanted me back. This time, on my own terms. I almost said no, but Lena looked at me and said, "You deserve your stage back." So I said yes. When I walked onto that stage, the lights didn't blind me anymore. The crowd rose, their applause soft at first, then thunderous. I sat at the piano, my fingers trembled, not from fear, but from power. And I began to play Glass Skin, the original, my version. Every lyric carried a ghost, every note a scar. But together, they made something beautiful. Not broken, not vengeful, just true. When I reached the final line, the words came out like a promise. "You can steal my song, but you'll never own my voice." The audience stood in silence, not clapping, not cheering, just listening. Sometimes silence means more than applause. After the show, Lena hugged me backstage. "You did it," she whispered. I smiled through tears. "No, we did." And in that moment, I realized something I hadn't before. Revenge had never been the ending. It was the bridge between who I was and who I had to become. Now when people ask me about Eli, about the stolen song, about the scars, I tell them this. Pain is an echo. It never really leaves. But if you listen closely, you can turn it into harmony. And that's what I did. My song, my truth, finally belongs to me. Fame feels different when you've bled for it. The morning after my performance, the world called it a comeback. Headlines praised my raw courage, my unfiltered authenticity. Fans flooded my inbox, thanking me for standing up for artists everywhere. But I didn't feel brave. I felt human again, and maybe that was enough. Weeks passed. The noise quieted. The hashtags faded, replaced by the next scandal, the next celebrity. But for once, I didn't care, because I'd found something the spotlight could never give me: peace. I moved into a small house near the edge of Nashville, where the only sound was wind brushing through the trees. Most days, I'd wake up early, brew coffee, and sit by the piano, not to write, but just to listen. To remember what silence sounded like before it was stolen. One afternoon, I opened an old notebook, the one I'd written Glass Skin in. The pages were wrinkled, water-stained from tears I'd forgotten shedding. On the last page, I had scribbled a single line years ago. "Music is what remains when words fail." I smiled. Back then, I thought music was just sound. Now I knew it was survival. Lena still visited often, sometimes with takeout, sometimes just to sit in silence with me. She'd tease me for becoming a hermit with a Grammy nomination. I'd laugh and tell her that solitude had become my new luxury. "Do you miss it?" she asked one night, as we watched the sun dip behind the horizon. The fame, the chaos, the stage. I thought about it, about the adrenaline, the cameras, the applause, and about the darkness that came with it. "No," I said softly, "I don't miss the noise. I miss the music." After Eli's conviction, there were documentaries, think pieces, interviews. Everyone wanted to dissect the story, the theft, the trauma, the revenge. But few wanted to talk about what came after. The aftermath isn't glamorous. It's therapy sessions, insomnia, trust issues, and the strange emptiness that comes when you finally get what you wanted, but not in the way you imagined. Healing isn't loud, it's painfully quiet. One morning, a letter arrived from Eli's attorney. My heart stuttered as I opened it. It wasn't legal paperwork, just a short note, handwritten. "I've started writing again. Not songs, just words. Maybe one day you'll read them. I don't expect forgiveness. I just hope you keep singing." No signature, but I knew who it was from. I folded the paper, slid it between the pages of my notebook, and closed it. For a long time, I just sat there, feeling nothing. Then, slowly, peace. Forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. It means not letting the wound write your story anymore. Months later, I was invited to perform at a benefit concert for women in the arts. I almost declined. I didn't want to return to the stage that had once broken me. But then I thought about all the messages I'd received, from young artists who said my story gave them courage to keep creating. Maybe it wasn't about me anymore. Maybe it never was. So I said yes. The theater was small, intimate, strings of soft lights draped across the ceiling. I walked on stage with no makeup, no fancy outfit, just a white dress and a quiet heart. When I sat at the piano, the audience hushed. Not out of awe, but respect. I wrote this song a long time ago, I said into the mic. It used to belong to pain. Tonight, it belongs to healing. Then I played Glass Skin, but for the first time, I didn't cry. Each note was a goodbye, to fear, to anger, to who I used to be. When the last chord faded, I whispered into the silence, "Thank you for listening." After the show, a young woman approached me backstage. Her hands trembled as she spoke. "I wanted to give up on music," she said. "Then I saw your story. You made me believe again." I smiled, tears warming my eyes. "That's the thing about belief," I said. "It's a song. Someone just has to start singing it first." That night, I sat by the window again, the moonlight spilling across the piano keys. I pressed one key, just one. A soft, simple note. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel haunted. I felt free. It's strange how the world moves on, but your scars stay. 2 years had passed since that night. The storm, the trial, the song that changed everything. The headlines had faded, but the story remained. Whispered, studied, retold. Sometimes I'd find a clip of my performance re-uploaded somewhere with new titles. The Girl Who Sang Her Truth. When Music Fought Back. And every time I'd scroll past quietly. Because the story wasn't about revenge anymore, it was about what came after. I had built a new life. Quietly, steadily. A teaching studio downtown, where young musicians came with bright eyes and notebooks full of unfinished lyrics. I helped them find their voices, the same way I once fought to find mine. There was no fame here, no lights, no interviews, just laughter, bad coffee, and off-key harmonies that somehow made everything feel right again. One girl, barely 17, stayed after class one evening. She hesitated, then asked, "Do you ever miss it, being famous?" I smiled. "Sometimes. But fame doesn't write songs, people do." She thought for a moment. "Then what do you write about now?" I paused and said, "Freedom." That night, after everyone left, I stayed behind to clean up. The piano sat quietly in the corner. Old, worn, one key forever stuck. I sat down and played anyway. Not Glass Skin, not any of the songs people expected. Just something new. Something that started soft, hesitant, and then grew into something warm, hopeful, alive. It didn't sound like pain anymore. It sounded like light breaking through clouds. Halfway through, I realized I was smiling. Not because it was perfect, but because it was mine. Later that month, Lena convinced me to attend an industry gala. "Just to show face," she said. I didn't want to, but she was persuasive as ever. When I walked in, people whispered my name, not in gossip, but in respect. And that felt different. One producer approached me, hand outstretched. "You don't know me," he said, "but your story changed how we handle contracts now. We protect songwriters differently. You changed the system." For a moment, I didn't know what to say. I'd been fighting for survival, not reform. But maybe, somehow, the two were the same. After the event, I stood on the balcony, looking over the city lights of Nashville. The skyline shimmered like a memory I'd once run from. The wind carried faint echoes of street musicians below. Laughter, guitar, rhythm. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel like the city was watching me. I felt like it was singing with me. I started journaling again, not for publicity, not for pain, just to remember. Each entry began with a simple line. "Dear Truth, thank you for waiting." I wrote about healing, about how revenge had been a doorway, not a destination. About how silence, once terrifying, had become sacred. And about Eli, not with hate, not with pity, just acknowledgement. The ghost who once held my voice now had no power over it. One morning, I received a small package with no return address. Inside was a CD, blank, except for the words handwritten in silver marker, for Kira. I hesitated before playing it. Static crackled, then piano, hesitant, broken, beautiful. And then a voice, low, fragile, familiar. Ellie. He was singing something new, a song about regret, forgiveness, and finding light after ruin. I listened until the end. Then, quietly, I whispered, "Goodbye." And for the first time, it didn't hurt. That evening, I walked to the lake near my house. The water reflected the sunset. Streaks of gold and rose like melted music. I sat there, barefoot, feeling the earth beneath me, the way sound turns to stillness. I closed my eyes, and for a moment I could almost hear it. The faint hum of glass skin echoing in the wind, mingling with the ripples of the water. Not a ghost, not a memory, just harmony. As night fell, I whispered into the quiet. I used to sing to be heard, now I sing to remember who I am. The wind carried my words away, and somewhere, far beyond what I could see, a new melody began. Not about revenge or pain, but rebirth. Because that's what truth does. It doesn't disappear, it transforms. 10 years later, no one recognizes me anymore, and I like it that way. The world has changed. New stars, new songs, new scandals. The name Kira Solin lives on only in documentaries and playlists that people stumble upon by accident. Sometimes, when my students find out who I used to be, they look at me like I'm a legend. But I always laugh and tell them I'm just a teacher who learned how to keep breathing. I live by the ocean now, a small coastal town in Oregon, where mornings smell like salt and pine. My hair is streaked with silver. My hands are softer from teaching than performing. Each dawn, I walk the beach barefoot, feeling the rhythm of the waves underfoot. It's funny, I used to think rhythm came from drums or guitars, but no, it comes from the heart and the tide and the will to begin again every day. Music still lives with me, not as noise, not as ambition, but as breath. Sometimes, when the fog drifts low, I sit on my porch with a cup of tea and play. No audience, no lights, just seagulls, wind, and the soft hum of the sea answering me back. My songs have no titles now. They don't need them. They're not for the world anymore. They're for peace. Lena still visits once a year. She jokes that I've become the monk of melodies. We drink wine, watch the sunset, and talk about everything but fame. "Do you ever miss it?" she asked again last summer. I thought about it. About the sound of applause, the rush of adrenaline, the bittersweet chaos of being known. And then I looked at her and said, "No, because I didn't lose fame. I traded it for freedom." She smiled. "You always did know the value of a good trade." Sometimes young artists still write to me. Their messages come from every corner of the world. Your story saved me. I kept singing because of you. I started writing again. I used to try replying to them all. Now, I simply whisper their names to the ocean and play something small. A private lullaby of gratitude. Because if music is energy, maybe it reaches them anyway. Last month, I received an email from a film director. He wanted to use glass skin in a new documentary. A story about women who rebuilt their lives after betrayal. He said it would bring the song back to a new generation. I smiled at the irony. That song had once been stolen, fought over, twisted. Now it was coming home, not to charts, but to hearts. I said yes, and when I watched the final cut, I cried quietly, not for the past, but for how far I'd come from it. One evening, a young woman knocked on my door. She looked barely 20, with a guitar case slung over her shoulder. "Sorry," she said shyly. "Are you Kira Solin?" I hesitated, then nodded. Her eyes widened, shining. "I'm sorry, I just wanted to say thank you. Your song. It's why I started writing." She opened her guitar case, pulled out a worn lyric notebook, and said, "Would you listen?" So we sat on the porch, student and teacher, stranger and mirror. She played, her voice trembling but true. And as the melody filled the night air, I realized something. This was legacy, not fame, not memory, but continuation. When she left, I stayed outside long after the stars came out. The sea was calm, the wind gentle, and somewhere in the dark, a faint melody echoed back. Hers, mine, ours. I whispered to the waves, "Thank you for turning my pain into someone else's beginning. The world will forget the details, the trial, the betrayal, the rage, but maybe somewhere, someone will remember the song. And maybe that's enough. Because art doesn't ask to be eternal, it only asks to be honest. And honesty, real, raw, imperfect, always outlives fame. So if anyone ever asks me who I am now, I'll tell them this. My name is Kira Solin. Once I lost everything. Then I sang and found myself again. Then I'll smile and let the sea carry the sound away, where it belongs, somewhere between silence and forever. It's been 25 years. My hands don't play the piano the way they used to. The notes are slower now, softer, like whispers instead of declarations. But somehow, that feels right. Time teaches you that music isn't about how loud you play. It's about what remains when the sound fades. I no longer live by the sea. After Lena passed away 3 winters ago, I couldn't stay in that house anymore. The silence there was too full of her laughter. So I moved inland to a small cottage near the woods. Here, the air smells of pine and rain, and at night, the crickets sing back up to my fading melody. I don't perform anymore, but sometimes I record small songs, lullabies, fragments of thought, and upload them anonymously. No face, no name, just sound. A few months ago, one of those songs went viral. It wasn't Glass Skin. It was something simple, just piano and voice, no lyrics, called Home in the Quiet. People started making videos with it, memories, proposals, letters to lost parents. They didn't know it was mine, and that was the most beautiful part. Because for once, my song didn't need me to live. Last week, a journalist found out who I was. She called, her voice trembling. "Miss Solin," she said, "do you realize your new piece just hit 100 million streams?" I laughed softly. It's not new, it's the same voice, just older. She asked for an interview. I declined. Some stories are meant to fade into mystery. That's how they keep breathing. Yesterday, I received a small parcel in the mail. No name, no address. Just a wax seal pressed with a treble clef. Inside was a letter, handwritten in elegant blue ink. "Dear Kira, my grandmother used to play your music when I was little. She told me you once said, 'Truth never dies. It transforms.' I'm now a composer myself. I wrote a symphony inspired by your life. It premieres next month, and I'd be honored if you came." Tears blurred the ink as I read. I wasn't just remembered, I was continued. Tonight, I sit at my piano, the letter beside me. I play softly, a slow version of Glass Skin, reshaped by time. It no longer sounds like pain. It sounds like belonging. The air feels heavy, but not sad. I think of Lena, of Nova, of Eli, even him. They all live here, in the pauses between notes. Maybe forgiveness isn't one act. Maybe it's a melody you learn to play a little better each year. As the final chord fades, I close my eyes, and for a moment, I can almost see it. The echoes of my song drifting through time, bouncing off unknown walls, landing softly in someone else's heart. A little girl humming while painting. A man driving through the night, lost in thought. A student finding courage before stepping on stage. They'll never know who I am, and that's exactly how it should be. Because songs are never ours to keep. They are bridges from one soul to another. And if mine still finds its way to someone new, then I've never really stopped singing. I lift my fingers one last time and whisper into the darkness. For every truth that was stolen, may another voice rise to sing it. The wind rustles the curtains like applause, and somewhere far away, a young musician presses record, her voice trembling, alive, ready to begin her own story.